All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Devin Sloane with Kappa TV, and I am here with Mr. Desmond Meade. How are you doing today, Mr. Meade?
I'm fine, Mr. Sloane. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for being with us here today on Kappa TV. Uh, I want to get started with talking about a huge accomplishment and undertaking that you recently went through in Amendment 4, which is restoring voting rights for almost 1.5 million returning citizens. What was your driving force to start the initiative to pass Amendment 4?
Wow, that's a great question. I think, you know, what, first of all, I have personal experience, right? And what I mean by that is that Amendment 4, what it did was restore voting rights to people with previous felony convictions. I myself was one of those people we call returning citizens. And so there was a personal uh, um, um, I had a personal stake in that effort because I personally couldn't vote because of my previous felony conviction. But I think there was a much greater driving force than something that was just personal, right? And I think it was more towards the bigger picture, and the bigger picture was that there was a group of people that felon disenfranchisement historically was designed to disenfranchise African Americans, right? And in particular, it's hit African American men the hardest. So at one point, 1 out of 4 African American men in Florida couldn't vote because of a previous felony conviction. So when I look at the original intent of felon disenfranchisement, and the impact it have on our communities, because if black people are getting arrested and convicted every day, that means every day more and more black people are losing the right to vote. And more black people lose the right to vote, that means that the political capital in African in black communities is being diminished every day, right? And so when you see situations where we may have issues and it appears that politicians don't care about our issues, right? A lot of that is because at the end of the day, we don't have the political capital to make politicians care about that issue. And so, I knew that if we were to get to a place to where our issues would be a priority for people who are in charge of our communities or who govern over our communities, our state, our country, that a key ingredient that must be in place is that people in those communities have the right to vote and is exercising those right to vote. And so that was a major driving force, and that being the empowerment of minority communities, particularly the African American community.
Um, did you ever think that your initiative would come to fruition and actually help this many people that it did? Because 1.5 million is a lot.
Yeah, of course I did. I tell folks, man, that I was inspired by God, to take on this role because I mean, at the end of the day, you know, this to be able to deal with an issue as controversial as restoring voting rights to people with previous felony convictions, and to do it in a state as controversial as Florida, all of the experts will tell you that it's impossible, right? That the subject was too toxic and it was too political, and therefore, because of the high threshold that needed to be met in order to pass a constitutional amendment initiative, that it would be a waste of time and resources to even attempt to do so. But you know, like this was inspired by God, and I believe not only because that like this came from God, but also because I had a tremendous amount of faith in people that was on the ground in the communities, and was seeing that felon disenfranchisement, while it was originally intended to impact African Americans, that it was like a tumor left unchecked. It spread throughout the population, and it not only impacted African Americans, but it impacted white Americans and Latino Americans. And so I seen that it was a great opportunity to engage people at the grassroots level, to really be able to organize people across political lines, across racial lines, to actually end up passing this thing. And so I had faith in God, and I had faith in the people.
So you've always been very candid about your past. Um, like earlier, you mentioned that, you know, you were previously incarcerated. What was it like working with what you had to get to that point that you are at now? And how would you prepare your younger self for the obstacles that you face today?
Ooh, now that's a tough question, Devin. I mean, for real, because part of me, part of me would say that, because we've heard this before. What would you, if you can go back in time, what would you tell your younger self, right? So part of me, looking back and understanding where I am now and the journey that I took, part of me would not change anything, because it appears to me that the things that I went through was a necessary ingredient in order to prepare me to do the things that I do today, right? And so if I were to say anything, part of me would say, well, if I were to say anything, it would be like I would tell my younger self, keep the faith, and keep focused on your mission, keep focused on the vision that God has given you, right? Because let me tell you, um, when I look at the things that I've gone through, and then you may have gone through some stuff, or you're going to be going through some things later on in life, is that I often see that you don't run from that, right? Because to me, the only way that you can get stronger is by going through adversity, right? And so at some point we have to learn how to embrace adversity and use adversity as a way to be to become a better person, right? You can't grow muscle unless you tear muscle, right? You got to tear it. And in order for you to tear it, you have to experience some type of resistance that takes you to the limit, right? Takes you to the point to where you're actually tearing your muscle. And then when you tear it, then while it's healing, another muscle grows on top of that, and so on and so on. And so, I don't look at adversities or failures just as something that's just totally bad or totally negative, right? They can be opportunities to be stronger, be better. And so in my journey, I talk about, okay, yeah, I was formerly convicted of felony offenses before, but I was also formerly homeless. I was also formerly a drug addict, and so I've been through quite a lot. And in that journey, part of what I was able to learn was that these things, I don't know if you ever heard this saying, whatever don't kill you, uh, can make you stronger, right? And so throughout that journey, I've learned to take the bad situations that I was in and see if I can extrapolate from that teachings or learnings. See if I can extrapolate from that, something that would make me a better person and would prevent me from being back in that situation that I was in. And so I've always, in this process, I've woken up every day, really making a pledge to be a better person by the end of today than I was at the beginning of today, right? Always woke up thinking that there's something that I must do today that would improve the lives of other people. And that formula really has allowed me to keep a very a strict adherence to the pathway that has been laid out for me.
I want to circle back real
Okay.
quick, back to Amendment 4. I just want you to like tell your feelings when Amendment 4 finally passed. How did you feel in that moment when all that work came to
Man,
fruition?
I was, I was relieved. I was overjoyed. I was excited. I mean, there was like so much stuff that was going through me. So two things I tell you that sticks out that may be relevant to our conversation. One being that there's not too often, at least prior to Amendment 4, that you would see a major campaign being led by someone who was black, right? And definitely you're not going to see major campaign being led by someone who has a past or a felony, prior felony conviction. And we live in a society where a lot of times people think that if you want something to be successful, it's got to be led by a white person, or it's got to be led, by a certain type of person, right? By a man, a white man at that. So that's the epitome of leadership in this country, right? And you see it play out even in like who's the president of our country and stuff like that, and who's the governors and stuff. And so and there's been like an unspoken narrative that maybe African American men and women do not have the capacity to actually be in that leadership position. Now, Devin, you might be looking around saying like, what the heck is he talking about, right? I'm gonna break it down to you, Dev. You ready?
I'm ready.
You remember how many times on sports people said that a black person could be a quarterback? Right? You know what I'm saying? That how, oh no, oh, he's athletic, but they never associate being smart, right, with black quarterbacks. So black quarterbacks are athletic, right? Michael Vick is athletic, Deshaun Watson is athletic, but Tom Brady is cerebral, right? He's a smart person, right? And they kind of minimize the ability of an African American to actually be that quarterback, that all around quarterback. And that's the same thing that happens in like campaigns and stuff like that. And so because here I was, a black person who was also a returning citizen that was leading the campaign. In the back of my head, I was like, man, I don't want to fail, because if this thing don't pass, then they're gonna be like, see, I told you, when Randall Cunningham and Michael Vick couldn't do something, they said, see, this is what we told you. That's why Tom Brady and the Peyton Manning that's why they're the Hall of Famers of the world, because see, he failed. He didn't make it. You see them doing that to Cam Newton now, right? And so I was always in the back of my mind, in the back of my head, worried about, man, if this thing don't pass, they could use this not passing as an excuse as to why black people shouldn't be leading major campaigns. And so when we won, it was like I broke the glass ceiling. I was like, okay, you can never say that a black person can't lead nothing, can't be successful leading something. So that was a sense of relief, because it cleared the way for other talented black people across the country who have just as much skill or even more skill than me to actually now could command being in a leadership position, right? The other piece I would add to that, and I apologize for my long answers, but the other piece that I could add to that is that at the party was a dude, Mr. Charles, I call him. 2 years prior to Amendment 4 passing, I met him, and I thought, and we both thought he could actually go vote. And this dude is like, I think in like his 70s or 80s, right? Real fragile. And when he went to go vote, they told him he couldn't vote. And he lost his right to vote because he was driving with a suspended license. And because he was convicted of driving with a suspended license, he lost the right to vote for life. So before Amendment 4, once you get convicted of a felony offense, you can never vote for the rest of your life. And so I remember when we found out that he could not vote because his driver's license was suspended. In my head, the first thing I thought about was, man, this dude who reminded me of my father is going to end up dying before he even get a chance to vote. And that bothered me, and that broke me down to tears. Well, the night that Amendment 4 passed, he was there at the watch party where I was at. And when it passed, we found each other, and he was hugging, crying. And the only thing he could say in my ear was, man, I could vote now. I could vote now. And just to know that we did something that allowed people who, some of them had just a dying wish to be able to vote before they died, to be able to feel what it's like to be an American citizen and participate in an election before they died. We gave that opportunity to so many people, right? And so that was huge that night, huge.
All right. So one of the things that we often address in Winter Park Kappa League is that Black men and mental health. There were a lot of obstacles that were thrown at you before and after the passage of Amendment 4. So what type of toll do you think, if any, did any of that have on your like mental health?
Man. So, you know, that's a good one. I mean, obviously it had some toll on me at some point, and we could talk about before, I mean, because it it took something to drive me to in August 2005 to be standing in front of railroad tracks waiting on a train to come so I can jump in front of it, right? It took something to lead me to that point. Um, and that was just, I mean, I don't think there's any other demographics of individuals that have felt the brunt of the world more than African American men, right? And then there's this constant struggle because you have the forces of the world that is like seemingly against every move that you make, right? And then you have, I guess, trying to hold on to some semblance and trying to hold on to some dignity that we grasp at the manhood thing, and in some cases that's even a false narrative, right? And then we suffer on both ends, right? And what I mean by that is that whatever trauma and stuff that I was going through, right, it was exasperated when I could not, or I did not, I should say, seek help, right? It was exasperated when I did not um, uh, um, release some of the things that was in me because here's the deal: real men don't cry. We've heard it. We've heard it. No, you can't be crying like a baby, but and that's BS because real men do cry, right? And it's nothing that diminishes your manhood or masculinity by crying, right? In cases where where we want love and we need love, like it's hard. Why is it hard to say I love you, right? Unless we trying to holler at a female, right? And so the illusional narrative of manhood was something that we grabbed onto, I believe, to give some type of reprieve from all of the pressures that this universe has been pounding down on us. Because I mean, what we have suffered through being kidnapped from the motherland and subjected to slavery for 400 years and brutalized and where slave owners have engaged in tactics that was specifically designed to destroy our psyche, right? And these systems are still in place today that are designed to destroy our psyche. And as we're trying to get out from under that, we sometimes mistakenly grab on to this narrative of manhood that only exasperates it, because then not only does it not allow us to deal with the internal mental anguish that we're experiencing, right? And so we're walking around untreated, but then it also now creates a situation where we take things out on our queens, and we treat our queens a certain type of way that we wouldn't want to be our mother to be treated. You feel what I'm saying? And so we get it on both ends. And so yeah, I had some of that, but to deal with it and to come out of that, I learned pretty quickly that, oh yeah, it's okay for me to cry. It's okay for me to say I need help. It's okay for me to actually go and talk to somebody and release that stuff, right? And it's okay to push aside these uh, um these identifiers or these definitions that society created to define who I am as a man or as a human being. It's okay to just set aside that and not go along with the norm and walk my own path and speak my own truth, right? And deal with those issues. And so a lot of the issues I was able to deal with through going through substance abuse treatment, right? I was using drugs for a reason, right? It wasn't just to be using it. And so to be able to go through a drug treatment program, to be able to get a closer relationship with God or a higher power, I think was a key steps or key environments that I deliberately chose to place myself in, right? And those were very helpful. But that journey, with, when you talk about mental health, man, it's a beast. It's a beast because of these systems that are just designed to not only oppress us, but to keep us from getting the release and the help that we need.
Um, I really talk now about some some more personal things real quick. How do you think some of your mistakes in life helped you become a better person?
Well, I mean, they say experience is the best teacher, right? Um, One of the things I remember reading this article, and the person was interviewing Stephen King. Stephen King was a very famous writer. I think he did a lot of those scary movies and stuff, right? Those scary books. Um, and very well respected writer. And they asked him what type of uh, works of art do he engage in, or what do he read other people's books? And he's like, yeah, I do. And then he revealed that he read a lot of badly written books. And the interview asked him, why, I mean, you're an accomplished writer. You're the bomb. Why are you reading badly written books? And his answer was, by reading them, I know how not to write, right? And so, uh, applied to me, the mistakes I've made have, number one, allowed me to experience the criminal justice system, um, have allowed me to experience reentry, have taken me to a place that have humbled me, all right, and have opened my eyes as to how we as a society treat the least among us, right? But it also has showed me how my decision making process, right, could either be an asset or a liability, right? And so those split second decisions that we make, right, um, are so critical to our failures and our successes. And being able to recognize, what it is that caused us to lean left when we should have leaned right, right? What is that caused us to say yes instead of no to going on a lick or whatever, those things, being able to analyze that and those experiences gave me a real time a condition in which I could analyze it and it not be hypothetical. It's not a hypothetical situation. I did that. I made that mistake. I did that wrong. You know what I'm saying? Now, why did I do it? It's not one of them things that, man, if it was me, I would have did this. Now, it's easy to say that, right? And you may be right, but my experiences and my mistakes eliminated the possibility or eliminated the uncertainty of what it is I wouldn't do and why I did what I did. And so it taught me how to make better decisions, and it gave me the experience to have empathy towards people who make mistakes, have empathy towards people who are poor, who are homeless, who are hooked on drugs.
In 2019, you were named to Times Magazine most influential 100 people's list. You shared the list with people like Michelle Obama, Spike Lee, LeBron. Like, tell us how it feels to be, how it felt to be a part of such like a distinguished list. Like,
It was dope. That thing was dope. I mean, you know, it was surreal. You know, I remember when I found out I made the list, and I was in the car with my wife, and I was like, you know, baby, what they talking about? The 100 most influential in the country? And she said, nah, baby, the world, the world. And the only thing, my only response to that was, baby, it's more than 100 countries in the world, you know? And so it was like mind blowing that with all of these uh, uh, politicians and dignitaries and celebrities, right, across this entire planet, that year I was counted among the top 100 most influential, and it was like, wow, you know. And the names, like you said, even Pope, I think the Pope was on that list, and Lady Gaga on that list, and you know, Khalid was on that list, and I was like, man, that's a very impressive company. But uh, uh, after being impressed, you know, I wanted to shine a little bit. You know, I kind of got a little disappointed they didn't put me on the cover, right? And they put The Rock on the cover. I need to write them a letter and tell them about that. But I've still got beef with that. And the reason why, it wasn't because I wanted people to see me, but I wanted to see who I was. I wanted people to see who I was. And what I mean by that is that putting me on the cover was a clear message that you don't need to be an athlete, you don't need to be a movie star, you don't need to be a millionaire, you don't need to be a politician to have significant impact in the world, right, or in your community, right? Because if that person who was a crackhead, who was homeless, right, who was had a lot of felony convictions, if that person could be one of the 100 most influential, that means that I can do it, or anybody can do it, right? And then the next question is, well, then how can we do it, right? And the key is service. How do we create a lifestyle, right, to where service to others is a priority, right? How do we create a frame of mind knowing that when we're out there, that we know that in order for us to have it better, that we must advocate on behalf of other people so they can have it better, right? And I think being able to operate in um, that zone of service and the zone of love, right? And how, being able to operate in that zone makes us all great.
what is some advice that you could give people that want to follow in the same career path as you?
Wow. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, if somebody wanted to, it's hard, man. Cause I mean, in some cases, I mean, in a sense, you have to be chosen for this work. You know, this work is not for the faint of heart. And I think, you know, you have to really decide what's your lane in the line of work, right? You want to know, you know, are you the chicken? Are you the cow? Or are you the pig? Now I know, Devin, you're like, "Oh, what is he talking about again this time, right? What you mean decide about whether you're a chicken, a cow, or a pig, right? What I mean by that is, you know, when I talk to people about, you have to figure out if you're making a contribution to something or making the commitment to something, right? And sometimes people get those two things confused. And to make it easy for folks, I always tell people about the ham and cheese omelet, right? Because we know it's egg, ham, and cheese in the omelet. And then, of course, you know, when I was poor, I used to put a little milk in the eggs to stretch the eggs out. And so when you look at those ingredients, you know, when you look at the egg comes from the chicken, you know that the cheese and the milk come from the cow, and then you know that the ham comes from the pig, right? And so the chicken made a contribution to the ham and cheese omelet, right? The cow made a contribution to the ham and cheese omelet. The pig, however, made a commitment to the ham and cheese omelet, right? And so you got to figure out, I don't know if some of your folks got this, right? But see, the chicken laid the egg and kept going about her business, right? The cow stood for a little bit and let somebody milk him. She going about her business. The pig had to lay down his life. You ain't getting that ham unless you're killing the pig, right? And that's the difference between the commitment and the contribution. What are you willing to die for? What are you willing to lay your life on the line for, right? And here's the thing. When you find that thing that you're willing to lay your life on the line for, right, then they get your path right there, right? But now you may find something that might be a great cause, but you ain't ready to die for that. Then that ain't for you to lead, right? That's for you to support. That's for you to contribute, right? And so thinking about going down a career path such as mine, and it could be a wide array of issues that you want to focus on, I believe it's so important that you do the ham and cheese omelet analysis and figure out what role you're in and figure out if this is something that you're so passionate about, you're willing to sacrifice yourself for it. And if that's the case, then what I say is that you connect with your higher power and you go in on it, and then you don't let anyone, whatever that vision is that God gave you, you don't let anyone deter you from it. You keep pushing forward, but make sure that at the center of everything that you do is love, right? Love, right? And love is that element that will not allow you to be going to do things because you're trying to make yourself great, you're trying to enrich yourself. Love is that element that's going to make you do things because you want to make the world a better place, right, for someone else, or that you want to improve the lives of someone else.
Looks like we have one final question. What is Desmond Meade looking forward to in 2021?
Man, I'm looking forward to playing me some golf, right? And doing some more jet skiing, right? In essence, I'm looking forward to relaxing a little bit more because I'm telling you, for I would say 10 years, I've been going at it 24/7. And so I'm looking to just really be able to take a few more breath, and exhale some more. But in addition to that, though, in 2021, I think it's so important. Like right now, Devin, I'm not even going to put you on blast, right? Right. But anybody that's listening to this, if you're 16 and you 17 years old, right, and you have not pre-registered to vote yet, you need to make sure that you do that. Point blank, right? If you're 16 and 17, you should pre-register to vote. So on your 18th birthday, man, you're gonna have a voter registration card coming to you in the mail. And so what I'm all about in 2021, besides playing golf and jet skiing, is making sure that young men like you, Devin, right, are registered to vote. Because voting is literally the difference between life and death. And if you all can get registered to vote and go out to vote during elections, that we can have a drastic impact on the conditions that we see today, especially those that causes us fear, that causes us frustration, that causes us anger. We can fix it, but we fix it by registering to vote and turning out to vote.
All right. Well, Mr. Meade, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. We wish you the best, and we thank you for your time.
Much love to Kappa League. Appreciate you, Devin. And anytime y'all can hit me up, I'm here.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Peace.